Hey, what's going on guys? Reed here and I'm back with another tech video. Now this time we are going to be talking about, this is a Mac only thing, but we're going to be talking about how to run an older version of Mac OS in an emulator. For the purpose of this guide, we are going to be using a guide from Immaculation to create this video. I will go ahead and link that in the description along with the other resources. We are also going to be, I'm going to be installing Mac OS 10.0. But it can run from macOS 10.0 to 10.5 or macOS 9.0 to 9.2, I believe. Once again, we'll write that in the description just to make sure you know. Please note that you might not get network and stuff with this from this tutorial. Of course, the guide will probably tell you some more additional steps. I will link the guide in the description, so you can review those and figure out what works best for you. So now, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and switch to the Mac. I'll be right back. Okay guys, I am back. We're on the Mac now. A couple things you're going to need to get. I've got them pre-downloaded here, but I'm going to show you. I'm going to download them myself, show you. Here's my little document with the code for the future. Yes, I was right when I was originally saying it. Mac OS X 10.0 to 10.5 and Mac OS Classic 9.0 to 9.2. I'll be using the rest of this in just a minute. But for now, we're going to need to do some downloads. I'm going to go ahead and go to the guide. First things first, this is all Creative Commons attribution, I believe. We're going to go here to download QEMU. I'm going to be using this one. Shouldn't take too long to download. I know these websites look a little slow at first, but it should speed up. Yep, it's just as I suspected. It's going way faster now. This might slow down a bit, but trust me, it will finish and I won't have to cut out the recording, most likely. But basically, there's going to be an important note that I'm going to tell in this video. If you don't do this, you will most likely have issues. So make sure you pay attention. But this is only applicable to Mac OS Catalina. You can check what you're running, go into Apple logo about this Mac. If it says Mac OS Catalina here, you're running it. This doesn't matter. It'll always be 10.15 if it's Catalina. But anyways, I'm gonna close that now. You're gonna need that. You're also gonna need a disk image of Mac OS, the Mac OS version you're gonna install. I'm gonna do Mac OS 10.0, so I'm gonna just Google it. I'm gonna recommend to use the WinWorld site. Of course, it's got more than this. There should be classic environment too. You're going to want to click the one that's not pre-release. Make sure it's in your language. In this case, you're going to want to click this one. You can go ahead and select a server that's closest to you. I wouldn't recommend this. This is experimental. Ignore it. You're going to click that. This will go ahead and download. As you can see, I've got a pretty fast internet connection, so it should go pretty quickly. Leave that to download. But before we do that, we need to open this folder. This folder right here is important. This is going to be where all your QEMU related stuff is going to go. We're going to use this application here to create a .img file, which will be our hard drive for this. This is the file that runs it. This is the file where you're going to store all your stuff. This is very important. If you look at the README, you can read all this if you want. I'm going to sum it up. Basically, in Mac OS Catalina, things that aren't built with the Apple developer tools that are not signed will not work. What you'll see is I'll try to run this as an example. You get this error. What you could do is you could go all the way into System Preferences here, Security and Privacy. You can press Open anyway, enter your password and stuff, but we're not going to do that. There's an easier way. So what I'm going to do is you're going to want to go back, right-click on this folder, press New Terminal at Folder. I'm going to go sudo, I want to get the name pulled up, /allow qemu to run.command. Basically, you're just going to type the name of the file right here, press enter, enter your password. This is only for Catalina, again. It will do this, and then you may not see some text, you might, but once you get back to this, and it prompts you to enter another command, you are just fine. So now, we're going to run another command to create the hard drive, but before we do that, I'd like to move my image in. You're going to right click the archive, usually .7z, 7-zip is where it's from. macOS has this built in, so you shouldn't need any other applications. It's going to go ahead, expand it. It usually doesn't take long. Most of the stuff in here is not going to take long to where you have to cut out the recording or where I have to. The only thing that I'm really going to cut out would be the installation, because that can take some time. You'll notice this new folder pops up. I'm going to rename this to be just less big and hard to remember, so because you're going to have to enter it later. I'm just going to name it to be macOS. Don't change the file extension at the end. You don't want to do that. I'm going to move it. I'll probably delete this folder. You're going to move it into the folder where you keep all your qemu stuff. Did I do that right? Hang on. I probably moved it up into 2 folders. Yep. But basically now we're going to run a command. Make sure you're still, it still says this, make sure you're still in this folder. I wouldn't close the command prompt we were using earlier. You're going to type /qemu -img. You're going to type create -f raw -o size equals. Now the default is usually 2 gigabytes. I'm going to do 6 gigabytes. So just type the amount of gigabytes and then followed by G for gigabytes. And then I'm going to type the name. I'm going to call it macOS 10.0.img. Format it. You can ignore all this. But when you get back to this screen, it shouldn't take long. It should take only a second. It's fast because we're not formatting it with a macOS system yet. Now we have to modify some stuff in here. You're going to open it with TextEdit by right-clicking it. Don't run it. This is where the code comes in, so I'm going to open this up. Now, you're just going to take all this, link the code in the description, Command-C it. Sorry, this is a Mac. I'm used to Windows a bit. You can probably delete all this and Command-V it. Now, you're going to need to change a few things around here. First of all, you might look at this. This here specifies what driver and stuff to use for the mouse and sometimes the keyboard. Not sure on that. But this is the default. It's newer, it's supported and everything. But that may not work for your hardware. For me, it won't work. I've tried it before. At least in this version and in other versions, it hasn't worked. So I'm going to type a different one. You can type CUDA if it doesn't work for you. It's older, it's maybe a little unsupported, but it's way more compatible. Make sure this is a D after -boot. Here's where you're going to really have to pay attention, because if you don't pay attention, it's most likely not really going to work out for you. You might have to do some troubleshooting on your own, considering the fact that it's just like running a piece of code. In fact, you are running a piece of code. It may be pre-built, but if you get an error, you might have to do put on your coding hat and do some troubleshooting. So if this says cdrom here, this is where you're going to put your ISO disk image you downloaded to install it. So of course mine is macOS.iso. Make sure you include the file extension. Shouldn't have to change anything else on that line. Just confirming. Always make sure all the names are right. Without it, it won't work. When this says media equals disk, this is where you're going to put your hard drive. So I'm just going to type macOS 10.0.img. Then that should be it for this file. Make sure you do file, save. You can go ahead and close it. Now for the moment of truth. You're going to run qemu.command by right-clicking it. You'll see a bunch of text on your screen, maybe a little smiling little Macintosh. There it is. Called it. By the way, because I've done this many times, that's why I know. I mean, a long time ago, like quite some time ago now that I think about it, I'd say a year or so, I explored this for the first time, ran all the versions I could in the 10.0 series all the way to 10.5, and I'll say most of them work. This guide on this video should work for some other versions like that. Might be different for macOS like the classic, but for 10.0 and especially, it will work. The only one I've really had issues with, I think, was 10.2. But yeah, if you want to type in the comments, I can gladly help with any issues. You'll see all this text here. Like I said, in a minute we're going to be taken to the installer. Now you can't just install it by just clicking through the installer. This is a common misconception. When you get here, you'll notice since I'm using CUDA, the mouse is working. Now you'll see the title at the top where it says QEMU up here. you're going to want to press Control-Alt-G if you ever want to get your mouse back into your actual Mac OS. Whenever your mouse is in here, you can click to move it into here. It's called Capture. It means your mouse is only available to this emulator. I'm going to go to Installer. I'm going to open Disk Utility. This is important. Keep in mind that earlier I said our hard drive has not been formatted yet. You're going to want to go Drive Setup. It should be Disk 0. Make sure it's got the capacity that you gave it in the command we typed earlier. Don't click this one. This is the installer. Go here. You're going to go to Partition. Name it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it macOS. Type. You're going to select macOS Extended. Make sure the size should be by default correct for the total amount of space on the hard drive. You can go ahead and do that. And press Partition. Go ahead, press Partition again. There's nothing on the disk right now. We aren't erasing anything. Because keep in mind, this hard drive I'm talking about is only for the emulator. It's nothing to do with the hard drive on your actual Mac where you're doing this. By the way, this guide is only applicable to Macs right now, like a Macintosh that you're running on your host. By host, I mean like the one where it's the operating system actually installed on the computer you're running the emulator from. I will link, so if you go to the Immaculation site, you can see some other guides for Windows and some other emulators. I might do more on the other emulators sometime. I will go ahead and publish those videos if I figure I want to do them. So you can go ahead and select your language here. Press continue. Do that. You can read this if you want. I'm not going to. It's just about system requirements. But memory should already be specified. Disk space was specified when we used qemu-img. You don't need to worry about it being a certain Mac model. This emulator will emulate one supported one. Yeah, you don't have to. We're not going to go through all this. Read this if you want. Most people don't, from what I've seen. And then just press agree. We'll check your disk. Yeah, this is fine because there's no Mac OS 9 on it previously. This is where you won't see it if you decided that you didn't open Disk Utility from here. You won't be able to do it from here. You wouldn't see this and you wouldn't be able to install it. You'd have to do that step. It's important. You can erase it if you want, but we already did that. It tells you how much space is required. That's why I did 6 GB, so there's plenty of space, like the terabyte we have today. You can press continue. You can customize it if you want. I'm just going to leave these settings where they are, and it will go ahead and install. So this will take some time. Like, when it's finished, you might end up at the installer screen again, like the beginning of it. If that happens, simply go to the X and quit qemu, or you can go to machine power down. I wouldn't recommend it. Most of the time, machine power down doesn't work. You can safely go ahead and quit it when you're on the install screen if you're back to the beginning. Because we're going to have to make some changes to this qemu.command here in order to get it to boot from the hard drive. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and cut out the video. This takes some time. So yeah, I'll be back pretty soon. Okay guys, I am back. You'll notice it says it was successfully installed. It'll tell you it will reboot. If you press reboot, you'll notice, I think it will reboot. I know that one of the known issues is that sometimes once you've got it installed, that reboot won't work. Looks like it does in this time. But you'll notice an issue with this. It's going to boot from the CD again. So we're going to go ahead and quit this. Now we need to modify a few things. We're going to go ahead and head back to our qemu folder. We're going to open this with TextEdit, edit it again. Now, to make it boot from the hard drive, you don't have to change anything. If you remove this, it will unmount the CD, and you could do that if you want, but it really doesn't matter. But to make it boot from the hard drive, you simply change this D right here to a C, and you switch the order of these so that the disk one is at the top, like in the front. And to make it boot from a CD again, you usually need to switch these back and change that back to a D. You can do these steps in reverse in most cases, and it'll do the action the opposite way. You can run it again. Now we'll say, instead of CD, it says HD for hard drive. Now you're going to notice it'll take you to the setup screen. Now, the setup screen's got a lot of registrations and stuff. You have to register Mac OS. It prompts you to, at least. I don't think it's required. Plus, internet won't work on this thing usually unless you do some additional stuff, which will be linked in the guide. And another thing is that it'll prompt you to set up an iTools account, which most of this stuff doesn't even apply today. So that tells you to set up mail, maybe a .mac account, stuff like that. So you can enter those fields if you want. Most of the time they don't matter. But because of the fact that you have to enter some like personal information like first and last name and all sorts of stuff, I'm going to not do the installation process on camera. But if you follow the instructions on screen, usually you will get it done pretty quickly. But the only thing I'm going to say for the installation process, like setting it up, is that if you get an error when you're trying to connect to the internet saying it can't, you can just press continue regardless. Usually it doesn't really matter. So once again, you're going to see a bunch of text. Yep, mount media, all sorts of stuff. Then you will be taken to the install screen in just a sec. Again, if something goes wrong, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm always willing to help. Let's see. You'll notice that it takes a little longer now, considering the fact that it's actually doing like all the processes, like it's actually running a computer now. It wasn't just running from the CD. So let's see how long this takes. It usually doesn't take too long. Probably won't need to cut this part out. Yep. Okay. So you'll notice nothing should have changed really from the mouse or anything. It shouldn't stop working at this point. In fact, nothing should stop working. But it's going to go ahead and load. If you see this spinning wheel right there, you know it's working. You can go ahead and do all this stuff. United States, because that's where I am. I don't know about you guys. Like, it's a lot of fields. You see, it prompts you to do this. So yeah, I'm going to do this installation process. I will be right back when macOS is working. Okay guys, I am back. Setup process done. You can, of course, registration usually won't work. Might connect to the internet, might not. Sometimes it fails, but it'll go ahead and bring you right to macOS. Ready. So this is just loading up. You'll notice this is a really old version of macOS, so a lot of things are different. I know for sure that reboot most likely won't work, and that software update most likely won't work. See, you've got thing here, system preferences looks way different in my opinion, so it's QuickTime. This here is your install CD. This is your hard drive. See, you got everything here. Most of it works. You shouldn't really have too many issues with the usage. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead to shut this down. You can simply click shut down. Now before I finish with this video, I want to show you guys what to do when you're done with it. When you're done with it, of course, you can simply just go back and delete this entire folder and all your associated files. I don't even need that one anymore. Okay? Must have moved that instead of trashing it. Or if you want to use it for the future, you don't have to run this again. You can simply delete these two files, edit your qemu.command, and reverse all the changes we did to it. Leave the code as it is, delete this name, go ahead and delete this name, set this back to D, reverse the order of these, and of course if you need to change this back to PMU, you can go ahead and do that. I'm going to leave it at CUDA, but then you can save it, close it, and next time you try to run it, it's going to return you an error, perfectly normal, and yeah, it'd be ready for use again. Once again, you can run this on multiple versions. There's different versions you can use with it, 10.5 being the newest, 9.0 being the oldest and the classic. The other emulators might go over in the future are going to have different versions that they can use. Like 10.5 tends to be the newest any of these will run. So QEMU supports the newest one an emulator would run. Others can go back to macOS 8.0. And I might even try an emulator for System 1, the first version of macOS to come out. But that's for a future date. So yeah, guys, that's going to be the end of this video. Everyone, thanks for watching. I will